Hello and welcome to another GM Tips with Disney music in the background and Mini GM happily eating a biscuit. It's all good, right? So yeah, if you hear some background noise, it's me being a dad on a weekend, which I love. I'm a dad all the time, but I like being that. So, GM Tips, what are we going to talk about today? We've talked about so much, and there's so many different things. I know we did the dive on Galarian. For some of you, that was a great thing. For some of you, you're like, okay, Rick, please get back to the standard tips. Okay, I'm back. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about long-term campaigns. And as we talk about these long-term campaigns, as I call them, so we'll title this one, Long-Term Campaigns and What Do You Do When You're Not in a dungeon or in some sort of an encounter. Again, there's downtime, and GMs can either fast forward through it, or they can really utilize that time to build an epic and memorable campaign. Mind you, campaigns are not all just about encounters and monsters and other creatures. Sorry, I'm going to get this right so you guys can see me properly. They're not just about all those things. They're a part of it. And quests and different things that your characters will go on as you GM them will be a part of that. But what do you do around that? Do you just kind of skip through things? Once in a while a bar or a tavern, once in a while an inn, once in a while a city, but you fast forward through it. Here's my suggestion. Enjoy it and really build it into a campaign. And we're going to talk about several ways to do that. One of the things we're going to talk about is what do your characters and players do when they're not questing? And there's a lot of different things you can do. And so we're going to hit each thing. Now, mind you, this is fantasy. You can do the same thing for modern. You can do the same thing for sci-fi. You just have to convert these things into those things. So, Downtime for PCs and Mutants and Masterminds or Hero system. That could be being their alter ego and doing their job, maybe doing legwork. Maybe it's building great contacts and sources and resources. Maybe it's setting up a private lair or something like that for your heroes or villains. That's something you can do. For the sci-fi, maybe you build a station. Maybe you build a smuggler's grotto. Maybe you build some other ships. Maybe you go into some sort of side venture or business. Maybe you get into a little more smuggling or into bounties. Setting up bounties for people to go collect people for you so your character's not always the one out there adventuring. Maybe it's running an organization or running a secret empire. There's a lot of different things you can do. And this is going to focus a little bit on that. There we go. Better. So I'm going to really look at that and look at doing that and what does that mean. So, sorry, I adjust the camera, and you guys notice I do that for a reason because I'll hear from you guys, Rick, you're at an angle, or Rick, you're this way. So I try to do a little bit of in-video adjustments so you guys can see me. All right, so focusing on this, what can you do? Well, number one, your NPCs can get a side job. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, that can be quite rewarding too. Just as much as rewarding as being out fighting the bad guys or fighting the good guys or on a heist. You guys can do a lot of things with that. And mind you, you can work for someone else. You can set up your own organization. So let me give you an example. One of my players decided when they took a place, if you guys remember the adventure with Cauldron, the shattered, the shackled city, there was a bathhouse, and the bathhouse became a focal point during the adventure for some reason. Well, the players took the bathhouse over from the owner, and they became the people running the bathhouse. And they used it to gain and build relationships and gather information. And it was a lot of fun because we spent a lot of time not questing at monsters, but with them using their skills to gather information and gather more intel on the city itself, on the goings-on, on the different organizations, who was who, what's the secret gossip and knowledge. And see, when you're running something like that, you got to remember, creatures will and different NPCs will open up to you in ways as a shop owner that they may not as a group of adventurers. So keep that in mind. Now, how do you do that? I think Paizo does a great job, and they came out with the Ultimate Campaign. And I really loved it because in the Ultimate Campaign, one of the things that they went over this is downtime on page 74. And I love that they went into downtime, because what is downtime? That's the time when you're not adventuring. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily downtime. And so, there's other parts of the book that are good because they go into a huge set. You ask me, what are the first pages, 60 or 70 pages before 74? That's character background. They spend a good 70 pages on creating backgrounds for your characters and story feats and traits. I love that because for me as a GM, if my players ever get stumped, I send them there. And they can roll and they can add it and tweak it. Once they've rolled their background, they go, oh yeah, I can work with this and get things done. Now, downtime. I love the intro here. It says, a halfling bard with a tin ear, a foreign zealot, a crazy woman who talks to her fox, Elaine snorted. No wonder they won't let us in. As if you're lovable, Faya shot back. What about the guards at the last town? The ones who waited until they were halfway through the gate and then tried to spear you in the back. A misunderstanding, Elaine demurred. How was I to know that their brothers fought in the Battle of Broken Wheel? Besides, it was nothing personal. Who remembers every peasant that gets cut down in combat? They did, Faye pointed out at her feet. The strange little fox barked, a sound eerie to a laugh. Ah, bah! Elaine waved a hand. The lower classes are so sentimental. And they give you a little picture of the two. And I love it. Elaine is the iconic cavalier, and Faya is the iconic witch. But that said, it really hits it. What is downtime? And downtime is basically a time when your players are not adventuring out in the wilds. They're not out in a dungeon. They're not fighting some bad person or good person or secret organization. They are trying to spend that time to either recuperate or, in this case, this is a good one here, gain capital. How do you gain funds to buy your magic items, to get your resources back in, to get you those valuable gemstones to resurrect yourself? They don't just magically appear. And GMs, I am real strict about that. I don't go after every component, but on resurrection and raise and some of these other things, I am strict about them having the gems. And if they're not ticking them off, which our guy does, I love him for it. He's real good, and I never have to ask him what's left. Because he'll tell me, oh crap, we're running low on those. And I love it, because he's honest about it. A lot of players in my group may or may not be. I have 3 players in my group that I really trust with their resources. And I know that they're keeping honest with me. The other 2, yeah. It's kind of one of those questions. But this is a time when you can gain more money. So how do you do such things? How do you get more money? Well, you can work on a skill or a profession. That's what those little slots are in your character sheets, that whether it's on a D20 Modern, whether it's on some other system, D20 Past, 3.5, 5e. What are these skills? These skills are not just for adventures, folks. They're also for using for downtime. So how well you craft something, how well you cut your gemstones as a gem cutter, how well you do things as a smith, is determinant on 2 things: your crafting skill and your profession skill. They can aid each other, they can work with each other, but they all play into getting that money. Now, some GMs may say, I don't really want to roll all that. That's fine. Then take the time and allow them to do that time to interact with NPCs, to really get to know their environments. There's nothing like getting entrenched into a town or a city you're in, because you get to know the people and they trust you more. They will open up to you more. You will get contacted by other people you normally would have never met in that encounter that you came in the city. Like Elaine says, you have somebody bad happen. Well, if he had done some work in the city and done craftsmanship and done some other things, people may not feel as hostile when something good doesn't happen. And so keep in mind that, they have a capital system in here, and I love it. Because, okay, so capital in this game, they say basically capital has several things. And the capital values are basically goods, influence, labor, and magic. And they give you how many gold pieces it is. And you earn capital, either in goods, labor, goods, if I don't get tongue-tied, influence, labor, or magic. You get paid. And that can be done either in more raw resources, or it can be done in actual money. So that comes up with the roles. So if you do a skill check in here on this page, and I love it because they call it out. So GMs make up a worth kind of a capital chart. So if they roll a skill check of a 10, which is fairly easy to do, you get one goods, influence, labor, or magic. A 20 is 2, then 3, then 4. So what does that mean? Then you can go back to that table and convert points to GP value. It makes it really easy to go through. And you don't even have to go back to GP. You can just turn these into other values where this is necessary to gain things. So it makes the monetary process real streamlined and simplified when it comes to that. You get more working on a weekend sometimes, depending on the area you're in. You might get 2 extra days worth of earnings that you wouldn't have had if you just worked that 5-day week. So keep in mind, this all goes into there. Now, how can you spend it? Well, so spending influence in an area. They even have that for the size of the town. So, okay, so say your characters are in a thorp. Well, again, if you want spare capital to turn into a finished project there where it's a smaller area, it's only 2. But you go to a metropolis, it's 65. Why? More people, higher market values. These things change from a small town to a large metropolis. So there is a conversion rate, and you can scale it. So your characters don't just go into a large city and spend 2 to get some finished good that the price will inflate because you're in that big city. So keep that in mind. Now, you get access to more, but it also costs more. And so there's a different thing. Now, there's upkeep on whatever you're doing. So if you've got a shop, if you've got tools, you're working in a trade, there's upkeep costs. And you can set what those are. You can say, hey, it's going to cost you one of your goods, influence, or labor to do an upkeep. And this is what it's going to cost you. So as you're factoring your points, you can also deduct those out as well. And help them to understand. Now, when they're ready to go adventuring again, you can convert those into GP value. Not as much value in GP often as it is in the raw materials and the raw things. So keep that in mind. But it's still a way you can do this and keep up with it. So, and they go through a whole thing on page 81 of 81 of this guide that they can take you through. You can set up your own. You don't have to follow their guide. It's just a step of guidelines in case you want to come up with a formula of how to do it. I figure it this way, and this is kind of my rule of thumb as a GM. If you're using tools for more than 2 weeks, they're going to have a 1 to 2% less effectiveness, depending on how much and how often they're used in that time. Think about it. It's true in real life. Your tools degrade over time, unless they're really high-crafted materials. Then you might reduce it a little bit and be able to work with it. But you just want to keep that in. So that's, I know I spent a lot of time in this, but this is one thing you can do with your downtime, is get that type of material influence or other influence in an area, or maybe NPCs to follow you that you wouldn't get if you don't spend a lot of downtime in that area. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, downtime activities, what can you do? You can add spells to your spell book. If you're a spellcaster or an arcane type, or even if you're a tech type, so you're in some sort of a tech modern thing, you want to learn new formulas and ways of doing things. That's what you can do. And generally what they say in this type of things is 1 day to copy 8 spells if you're an arcane, or I would say if it's a complicated task, 1 day for a really complicated task, For a semi-complicated, maybe you can write down 2 a day on how you accomplish these, the different workings and parts you need, and what other resources you're going to need to make these things work, and the how-tos. So you're copying all this into an area that you'll have it portably with you later. So again, you can say it with either one, and I'm hitting both types. You can construct buildings. Buildings take a while to do it, and they'll show you, like in this Paizo book, it shows you how long it takes to build a building. Okay, and it takes the labor that you're going to need. So those resource points, you use it towards labor to complete your deal. And you can spend that with not only that, but it'll tell you how much needs to be spent for labor and how much for materials. So it really simplifies it. So instead of the GM going, okay, 600 gold pieces here and 400 gold pieces here, do it in points. Much simpler. 5 points here, 2 points here. Okay. And you mark them off, and then you mark how many days until completion. And you can go out there and look at it, and I'd go out to the site, because let's face it, not everybody does things up to reputation. Cut corners, especially if you don't spend time with them. So if you're trusting it and you don't have a foreman you can trust, bribes happen, things happen, and other things happen that will reduce the overall workmanship of a site. Crafting magic items. So you can go back in there and see, or crafting any type of item, not just magic, but tech and other type of things. So whether you're a superhero making some sort of tech for you, so say a batarang, or some sort of a device that'll protect you from impact of bullets, it takes time to craft Kevlar and everything else. Not everything is going to be easy for you to access, because if you don't have a military contract, you can put your hands on it. And so crafting items, crafting mundane items, they go through a formula there. Earning capital, and then earning XP. You can earn XP from doing things in your profession. Didn't know that, did you, players? Or other types of rewards or skills or other types of abilities. That training comes when you're doing things in a town. And technically, you should make your players train for their skills. We don't as GMs often for the sake of the game. But this is one way you can do that if you do more in the city and spend time. Gathering information. Talked about that. Healing others. If you have a kingdom or influence, so say you want to do some social things to gain influence. But mind you, in a feudal system, or even in a high-tech system, you have to gain influence, basically shake hands, kiss babies, and do all the other things to get you the influence to get possessions, land, buildings, a lair. You have to do that. If you're going to move up and have any influence in an area, you have to build it. It comes with diplomacy and bluffing and many other things and attending things. That all falls in there, making those skill checks to get favorable outcomes in each one. You as a GM can run that and set the difficulty. They call them a DC, or the difficulty rating, difficulty class rating. You can set that. And I wouldn't just make it one, let's put it this way. I wouldn't make one roll to say, okay, you got your new home. No. Nothing is ever that simple, GMs. I know you want to make it that simple. I make them make 6 to 10 rolls over time, because you are influencing people. Think about it in real life. You don't own a home tomorrow. You got to do a lot of work. Why should you rob your game of that? I would not. I would make them work for it. Because then when they get that thing, it's that much more important to them as players. So keep that in mind. Promote your business. You don't just have people come into your shop because you say, here I am, here's my sign. They've never bought from you before. They have no reputation with you. How do they know if you're good or not? Just because you're that wonderful adventurer doesn't mean you make good items. So you're going to have to promote it. I love this right here. The sign going up with a gun shop, I love it. That says it all. That's the first step. Then many more steps with it. So keep in mind, you are not just going to go up there and put that sign up, hang that shingle, or that sign on the shingle, and it's going to work. It doesn't work that way. And businesses do fail. And if players don't promote them, businesses will fail. Researching spells or researching new things that you want to do, that takes time. Recruiting for organizations. You want to make a Thieves Guild, you want to make a Adventurers Guild, you want to make a Spacers Guild, that takes time and effort. Getting your familiar back. If you're a spellcaster and you lose them, it takes time. They don't automatically just appear. Researching facts and lore. So I had the players go into a library the other day, and they were sitting there doing the research, and they're like, okay, great, we need one roll, so we're done, so we can do 3 more things today? No. It took you all day to get that one thing accomplished. Really? Yeah. You're not like this speed reader. That's not how it works. I'm sorry, there's some people like that. Most players are not that way. And you've got to get them acclimated to that. As GMs, we're afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to make them work for it. Resting, retraining, running a business, scheming, training animals. These are all things you can do in the downtime. Now, here's some of your fees that you get for different types of jobs you do. I love it. It gives you suggestions in there. Rooms and teams, constructing and building rooms. I love it. This is the kind of stuff. And we don't want to read it as a GM because we're thinking, God, this is more. Building an artisan's workshop in different places. How to get your business constructed and what does it cost and what kind of space. You got to look at it. So, for instance, they say here, say your player wants to build an altar to their god or goddess. It gets you +3 influence in an area, which is huge on rolls. But you got to spend 2 goods, 1 influence, 2 labor, 1 magic, basically a total of 210 gold pieces, and it takes 4 days. I love it as a GM. I'm like, yes. And it takes up 2 to 8 squares on a grid area, so you got to have the space for it. So you can go through and do all these type of things. Building organizations, it talks about costs there. I love it. So you want to build an academy? 120 goods, 16 influence, 19 labor, and 3 magic. Basically, 5,400 GP. And then it has 1 alchemy lab, 2 baths, a bedroom, a bell tower, a book repository. It tells you what's there. So as a GM, you've got to love that. Again, Paizo, this is not as much of a used book. And you ask me, is the ultimate campaign worth it? Oh, yeah. If you want to do downtime stuff, it is. Different events going on. So if you want to host events, what's going to happen at the events? Will you bring in stuff? What's the chances of success or failure? They give you maps of typical trade shops and piers. Don't you love those kind of things? So this is all downtime. So I'm taking about 24 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I'm running a little long today on this one. I normally keep it at 22. But mind you, there is so much you can do in your downtime. So don't just poo-poo it away. Don't just make your campaign be about 30 or 40% downtime to 60% quests. Let me tell you what, your players will begin to fall in love with it because they're doing things, they're building things, they're getting things accomplished. Maybe they had goals in life. Maybe they want to have their own Thieves Guild. Now you give them that ability instead of just running them through your adventure. Take them through the path. Build up local NPCs and people they got to work with and reoccurring people. This is fun for you because you're building a network and fleshing an area out to make it that much more memorable. And you can continue a next campaign on it, and a next, and a next, because this becomes your little village that grew up into a city. See where I'm going with this? Lots of fun. And it allows you to do that. Right, Gaston? Sorry, in the background. So, hope you had a great GM tips. Please use some of these ideas and let me know. Rick M, the GM, without a K, or RICMOH45 at Gmail. Thanks, guys.